Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Warchant Report. I'm Aslan Hajavani, joined by Jeff Cameron, host of the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 FM, 1 to 3 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday. He does Seminole Headlines with Corey Clark and that guy, Irish O'Fell, managing editor of Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Watching us here on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. We certainly would appreciate it. Subscribe to our YouTube page. That's totally free. And if you're feeling adventurous, it's still $1, right, gentlemen? It's just $1 to subscribe.
It's $1.
Warchant.com, everybody. Come on home. Come on home. We're waiting for you. The Noles are 2-0. What's your excuse? Looking to move to 3-0 this Friday when they start ACC play against Louisville at Cardinal Stadium in Louisville, Kentucky, 7:30 on ESPN. Louisville coming off their own Friday off sort of game week this past week against UCF. They improved to 1-1 on the season. They got thrashed by Syracuse in week 1. On the flip side, though, not a lot to like from Louisville, even despite the win against UCF this past week. They're 1-1. Florida State, meanwhile, 2-0, gentlemen. I feel like there's a lot to like about Florida State right now. I'm riding high right now, Jeff. When you look at this team right now through 2 games, what do you like about Florida State as we sit here and talk about the Noles?
Improved depth on the offensive line and Jordan Travis's ability to hang in there and throw the ball. Really, even in obvious passing downs, he was patient. He had total command of the offense. I sat next to Ira in the press box up there in New Orleans, and I just kept looking at he and Corey saying, this is a different kid. I think I was kind of waiting to see in a game. We'd seen him have good practices in the fall camp, but I wanted to see him in a game against real athletes making plays when they were going out of their way, obviously, to disguise their looks and throw a bunch of different things at him. He handled it with a lot of poise, almost as if he had total control of this offense all along. I think that's the Jordan Travis we're going to see all year long. If Florida State falters, I don't think it's going to be because of the quarterback. So if you love your quarterback, then you love your chances to go on the road and get some big wins.
You know, the kids say don't be a fan later, Ira. I unfortunately did not pay much credence to that adage. I am now a fan. It's been later. You've been on this young man's side since day one, it seems like, with Jordan Travis. Did any of that catch you by surprise? And is he maybe the best thing to like right now about Florida State football?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I expected him to look like he did in terms of going through progressions and throwing with the confidence he's throwing with. I mean, I think what I've always been impressed with is, I mean, he is otherworldly sometimes with the things he can do as a runner. And based on what you had, and I thought he was good enough as a passer that combination can win a lot of college football games. Well, he's throwing the ball a little bit better than I even expected. And I thought we saw signs of it during camp, as Jeff said, but then you saw more of it, get to see more of it during a game, which was really good to see. Just some of the throws with conviction, throwing with anticipation, things that you really want to see from a good quarterback. I think it's progressed further than I even expected. But I would say this, even quarterbacks who are really good, other than Jeff's quarterback with the Bucks, most quarterbacks still have days where they're not as sharp as they are other days. So I don't know that we can expect Jordan Travis to be sharp every time out, but I do think we now have an expectation that he can play quarterback at a high level when he's on his game.
I don't think you're disagreeing with Jeff. I like what Jeff said about what he saw from Jordan Travis against LSU. That's the kind of quarterback we're going to see, and he's going to continue to grow. I mean, I'm sure teams will figure out ways to try to trick him, but I think he showed the poise that Jeff mentioned against LSU that I think it's going to be really tough to stop him, man. I mean, he's not a run-first quarterback by any stretch. He is very confident right now. I mean, the throws he was making in practice on Monday were super impressive. The way he went out in their speed tempo drill to start the practice, I mean, even Ron Dugans ran across the field and dapped up Jordan. That's how sharp he's been looking. So I can't imagine how good he's going to look come October, November. Go ahead.
Norvell did as well. And all I'm trying to say is that even good quarterbacks, I mean, like Jameis Winston on Sunday for the Saints, he had a half where he didn't look very good, and then he had a half where he was really good. I think I'm just saying we're at the point now with Jordan Travis, we know that he can be good, but we also have to remember that if he has a bad half or a bad quarter where it's just not clicking, that doesn't mean, we were wrong. It just means that sometimes quarterbacks are not sharp for all 4 quarters. So, again, I think it's really good where he's at right now, but I don't know that we can expect him to play at a really high level every quarter of every game because most quarterbacks don't do that.
Well, I don't think Louisville is going to be the fly in the ointment for Jordan, but there is some hesitancy right now with the fan base, Jeff, with this game. I mean, I guess it kind of is a little bit of a sneaky trap going into Louisville on a Friday night. This team has not played a true road game yet. Is there any reason to be a little bit leery of this matchup, despite the fact that, again, we think Florida State's looked remarkably well this first 2 games of the season early on, and Louisville, meanwhile, is being pretty much the opposite?
They'll be sky high for this one, Aslan, because they got the win, and it was ugly, but it doesn't matter. They won the game, and they'll feel like there's something to salvage here, maybe save a season. I know they got off to a horrible start where they scored just 7 points against Syracuse, but you bounce back with a win here, and let's say you beat Florida State in your next game, your first home game of the season. All of a sudden, you're 2-1. You'll just look at the Syracuse game as an afterthought, and you feel like your season is underway. For Florida State, like you said, they haven't played a true road game yet. If you get down early, what does that do to you mentally? Now, I like Florida State's place in this game. I like a lot of things about what they bring to the table on offense and what I think they're going to do to Louisville's defense. At the same time, I worry. Malik Cunningham's had a lot of success against Florida State. So if you're going to ask me about an aspect of the game that I'm worried about, it would probably be that young man, even though he has not played well in either of the first 2 games, certainly not as a passer, and he hasn't been prolific as a runner. So you hold your breath and you say, all right, Florida State defense, he hasn't been great so far. You're better than you were a year ago, or at least we think you are. Here's a chance to prove it on the road.
I mean, we'll dive a little bit more into the matchup here, I guess, Ira, when we come back on the second part of this show. But from the surface, man, it just feels like it's hard for me to imagine Florida State's going to have to do something really uncharacteristic, I guess, from what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Now, granted, if we include the last 2 years, it might not be uncharacteristic if they do some things that give this game away. I just find a hard time believing that they won't beat themselves. If they end up losing this game, it'd be Florida State beating themselves. I don't see Louisville being able to take the fight to Florida State more than they can. Is there anything in particular that might be kind of a thing to keep an eye on, an aspect of this game that does make it a little bit trickier for Florida State than we're hoping, if you're kind of riding high right now as a Florida State fan?
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, to say, if you go into this game, if Florida State plays really well, if they play as well as they could play or close to as well as they could play, they should win this game. I think they're a better football team than Louisville. I think they've got more weapons. I think they've done a better job with this roster. I think there's a good chance they'll be the more physical team. But you also have to realize that you don't always play your best, and you're going on the road for their first true road game. I do think Louisville's going to look better than they've looked because this is their first chance to play at home. And if they get going early, that can bring out a lot of good things from that football team. So, and the fact that they've won the last 2 matchups has to give them a lot of confidence going into this game. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's a game where Florida State can play their C game and expect to win on the road. But I think if Florida State plays really well, if they play close to as well as they can play, it's a game they should win, and I think they will win. They just have to do that.
That's the thing, right? Ira's right. We've seen it before. Florida State's best right now is better than Louisville's best. Florida State would beat Louisville if they both play their best game. I don't care where it's played. But teams don't always go on the road and play their best game. And if you get off to a poor start and you haven't beaten this team the last couple of times you faced them, there has to be a little bit of here we go against type stuff running around your mind. Look at the way they finished the LSU game. They were so much better than LSU for the vast majority of that game. And yet, once LSU got a little bit of life, Florida State kind of looked like a team that wasn't real sure they could close it out. So you just worry that if something goes awry early, do you start to see the doubt creep in? We hope that they're further along in their maturation process than that, but we don't know that to be true. It's just 2 games in, and one of those games was against a glorified high school team.
Yeah, no, touche. I do think they're further along, and I think even if they do fall behind early, I mean, they've just shown enough mettle to me here through camp, and the way they're talking, the confidence the coaching staff has, and the way that Jordan Travis has played, their quarterback is just so darn good right now. I think that they'll find a way to overcome any sort of early mistakes. But again, it is on the road. It is worth mentioning that they've had trouble with this team since this staff has been in place. So these are things that make the game interesting, and you should watch it on Friday night. Before you do, watch the game on ESPN. You should tune into Warchant Game Day presented by Zaxby's of Tallahassee. Zaxby's of Tallahassee, spearheaded by a 17-year Golden Chief Florida State booster. Jeff and Tom will get you ready for kickoff, and then during the game itself, apparently everybody's involved. All hands on deck for this one. Jeff, Ira, and Tom Lang doing the watch-along on YouTube. Get your TV, DVR rather, set up and sync up with Jeff, Tom, and Ira. They'll be watching the game, giving you live analysis, live reaction to the game as you're watching it at home. And then following the game, our own Gene Williams and Tom Lang with the post-game show, taking phone calls and wrapping things up. And then the Warchant wrap with Corey, Ira. I think we'll do it remotely with those 2 guys. I'll be up there with Corey, but we got to keep it. We got to keep it 100, as the kids say, and keep it with Ira and Corey. Check out Warchant Game Day right on YouTube. It's free. Join us, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, moving along, now let's look a little closer then at Louisville. Let's look, I guess, maybe at a matchup for Florida State offensively going against Louisville's defense, Jeff. And the fact is, right now, Louisville's trying to run a 3-4 defense. Their top tackle, their top defensive tackle, Lole, is actually out for the season, transferring from Arizona State. So they're pretty much anchoring their front three with a 280-pound, 290-pound defensive tackle right now. Do you see Florida State kind of returning to their roots and trying to be a run-first team and establishing a run against Louisville and then doing that until Louisville proves they can stop it? Or do you think this is a time where they can kind of run the full complement of what they want to run and maybe let Jordan Travis set everything else up?
I have total faith they'll be physical in this game, and they'll go right at Louisville there. I think they kind of return to some of the stuff we saw with their efforts to be so physical against Duquesne. I know they wanted to establish a mentality and a mindset. I think you can do that against Louisville here. Florida State's offensive line has improved enough that you can lean into that on the road and then let Jordan go from there. I hope they do try to establish that. I think Louisville's linebackers are okay. I haven't seen anything from the defensive front through 2 games that I'm enamored with. So I think Florida State should line up and run the football. Ira's probably going to touch on this because I know he brought it up after the game, and I think he's right. When you go back and watch the game, Florida State's running backs did not play well in that last game. There were yards to be had there. Schematically, they blocked some things up, and they left a lot of yards on the field. So I think they challenged their running backs this week because they're going to go at Louisville again. That defensive front does not scare me. I would run at Louisville and challenge these running backs to do a better job, both with vision and then also the way they finish runs.
Ira, run game, establishing it, is that the key, tantamount sort of key, you think, for Florida State going to this game against Louisville, and can they do it?
I do think it is, and I do think they can do it. Now, the only caveat would be if LSU just sells out to stop the run, which they did kind of in the second half or most of maybe the last 3 quarters of their game against UCF, then, man, Jordan Travis and these receivers can beat you that way. And so, I think if Louisville plays them straight up, yeah, as you said earlier, if you don't have a stout defensive tackle in the middle of a 3-4 defense, that's a problem. That's not a good defensive system if you don't have a hoss in the middle up front. And Louisville hasn't shown anybody to play to step up into that role. And so I think they are susceptible to the running game. But if they sell out to stop it and they run a lot of run blitzes and bring numbers, then I think Jordan Travis and the receivers will make them pay for that. So I think it's a great matchup for Florida State. If they do play them straight up, yeah, man, I expect the running game to step up. I think Trey Benson, Trayshawn Ward, Lawrence Toafili, none of those guys could have walked off that field in New Orleans feeling good about how they ran the ball. And this is a good chance for them to redeem themselves against the team that they have not had a lot of success against.
I'm sure Louisville's going to be kind of confident on the defensive side of things, though, Jeff, just simply because they stopped UCF 10 times in a row, if I'm not mistaken, on Friday night. But is there a parallel to John Rice Plumlee and what Gus Malzahn does and what Mike Norvell is trying to do and what he can do with a guy like Jordan Travis at this point?
I think Jordan Travis is a lot better, first of all. Secondly, I'm also not a big Gus Malzahn guy. So you're asking the wrong guy. I think he's terrible. And I have thought that for some time. So it's one of the reasons I picked Louisville last week to beat UCF on the road is that I think Gus Malzahn's an idiot. Okay. So I strongly favor Mike Norvell in this matchup.
And in a row, not a big deal.
Well, and I, again, man, the difference between Plumlee, who hadn't really played quarterback in the last 2 or 3 years, to Jordan Travis, to where he's coming into his own. I mean, I just think it's night and day. So what you could do in that game defensively, I just don't think applies in this game. So they're going to have to play a little more straight up. And if they don't, man, it could be a long day. Florida State's receivers and quarterback are much better than what they saw from UCF.
All right, so not a lot of parallels between Plumlee and Jordan Travis. What about Malik Cunningham? Is there something with him that possibly – you always need to be on the lookout for him, Jeff. But is there anything that might give you concern if you're a Florida State fan about the way Malik Cunningham's skill set is and the way that Jaden Daniels was for LSU and how he kind of figured things out in the second half against Florida State? Is there anything there with those two sort of quarterbacks and the way they attack opposing defenses?
Yeah, much closer. That's the area that I'm far more concerned about. And Malik Cunningham's not going to be lacking in confidence against Florida State. I can tell you that. I mean, he's had nothing but success against Florida State. And I think really therein lies the question, is that you look at Adam Fuller and you say, all right, what have we learned? We learned a lot, we think, in the second half of last year's game between these two teams. But the first half was such an unmitigated disaster that you hold your breath a little bit going into this game. Is there something, does Satterfield know something about Fuller's defenses? I'm not so sure, but the bottom line is until I see it, until I see them shut him down, yeah, I'm slightly nervous. That's a young man that when he gets rolling can really get rolling. He hasn't yet through 2 games. I don't think he has great weapons to throw to, but I don't know how much I'm to believe in Florida State's secondary just yet. Love him at safety. Don't know how much I love him at corner just yet. Cunningham's had a lot of success. That's why I worry that early, if he has success, this could turn into a shootout.
For you, Ira, I mean, looking at Malik Cunningham, obviously he needs to be sort of neutralized, but is there anything in particular? Is he going to be doing the same sort of stuff that Jaden Daniels did, where it's really running, not by design, but simply out of necessity?
I think it would be more out of design. I mean, I think it's part of what he can do. And I think they would love to be able to let him sit back and play quarterback like a traditional quarterback. He has thrown for good yards in the past, good numbers in the past, but I don't think that's what is best for this team. I don't think they have quite the same weapons around him as they have had in previous years. I also think he hasn't been on the same page with them. Now, we'll see a different Malik Cunningham, I believe, in a different Louisville offense at home. It's just the reality is quarterbacks, passing games play much better at home than they do on the road. And this will be their first chance to play at home. So I think it'll be a bigger test than what UCF or Syracuse saw. But I also think, one of the things we talked to some of the players this week, we talked to Tatum Bethune and some of the other defensive players last week. And Tatum Bethune said the biggest problem they had against Jaden Daniels was they kind of lost the way he described it was like they kind of got out of their mind. They were too aggressive in certain situations. They were too tentative in other situations. They didn't just relax. They kind of got too fired up about that matchup, and they made some mistakes. He and Jared Verse and a couple of the other players we've spoken to really feel like the defense, the plays that LSU made were a result of FSU's defense making mistakes, making mental mistakes. And this is an opportunity for them to show that growth. If they go out there and do the same things and make the same mistakes against Malik Cunningham, he's a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels. And so he can beat them both ways. So I really think this is a big opportunity for this defense where you got some new pieces to really show that they're better than what they showed, especially in the fourth quarter of that LSU game.
Jeff, I think so much of Florida State's success against LSU defensively, at least early on, was the fact that LSU just simply couldn't run the ball. And that was a huge boon for Florida State defensively. We're obviously monitoring Fabian Lovett's status, a little bit banged up after that LSU game. Right now, Louisville's got a running back, Tyon Evans, who's averaging over 5 yards a carry. Scott Satterfield, that's what he wants to do. He wants to be able to run the ball maybe just as much as Mike Norvell does. Is that a concern, stopping obviously the run game? You need to be able to stop that to be a successful team. But is there anything about Louisville, whether it's schematically their running back or just the desire they have to run the ball, that's going to be a real key for Florida State to focus in on, even if they maybe aren't at full strength up front?
Yeah, well, I mean, how banged up are they, I guess is what I would say. We don't know at the time of this recording. Fabian Lovett is a huge part of what Florida State does. Knock on wood that he's able to play. If he's not able to play, that's a severe impact to what you can do defensively, or at least kind of dominance that you would project is now in question. I worry about that. But I would think that Florida State's coaches defensively, otherwise Mike Norvell, are going to talk about meeting physicality with physicality here, understanding that Louisville wants to establish that and taking that away early on. Florida State did a great job of it against LSU. Let's hope that they're able to do that. And really, you want to make Malik Cunningham throw the football. You want him to stay in the pocket and throw the football. I'm not one of these guys who advocates a spy per se. I know a lot of people like to say that, but I think it's a lot easier said than done. But I do want to kind of keep him contained and not lose my rush lanes and make sure that he's throwing the football, because I think Florida State is good enough to get home off the edges there against this group up front for Louisville.
All right, any concerns about the coverage Florida State holding up? As Jeff's talking about, you want to make Malik have to beat you through the air. I mean, any concerns residual about what happened towards the end of the LSU game?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, especially because of the way they play. I mean, to what you guys were talking about, Louisville, they do want to run the ball. They want to establish that zone running game and then make plays off the play action. And then you mix in Malik as a runner, and that creates some challenges. And so that, again, if you start cheating up, or if the corners and start kind of getting their eyes in the backfield, wondering about what Malik's doing, now, man, you have to be on point. And we love the safeties. Jamie Robinson and Akeem Dent are playing at a real high level. They're really good safeties, as good as there is in the ACC, but you can't just get exposed on the corner like happened sometimes in that LSU game. Now, Louisville's receivers are not as good, But it doesn't matter who's out there at wide receiver if they're making mistakes with their eyes or eye discipline and getting and losing contact with who they're supposed to be covering. You don't want to give them, again, man, Louisville the last couple of years has gotten so many cheap touchdowns against Florida State, and that just can't happen. You can't have them just break off a 60-yarder or an 80-yarder because you came up worried about the running game.
Last thing before we make our picks here, guys. Over under, Jeff. 4.5 tackles for Jarvis Brownlee.
I'll say over. I think he's going to have to come up and make a lot of tackles. I think Florida State's going to run the ball.
Ira, over?
Yeah, I'd say over as well. I'll be curious too, man. Jarvis Brownlee. I like Jarvis Brownlee. I think Florida State would have been a better football team if they could have figured out how to keep him at Florida State. I'm not saying he's a superstar, but I liked him and I like his physicality. But he is an aggressive football player, so it would not surprise me at all if Mike Norvell figures out a way to maybe try to exploit that, because they know, man, he's an emotional kid. This is an opportunity for him to show Florida State what they should have, and so double moves, different things. I think they'll try to figure out a way to go and exploit that a little bit.
What are you folks at home waiting for? Subscribe to warchant.com. It's only $1. We're not even sure for how much longer, but for an entire year, you can get premium access to warchant.com for only $1. Warchant.com also with the podcast network featuring the Jeff Cameron Show, Wake Up Warchant, Seminole Headlines, In the Coop with Robert Cooper, as well as the press conferences, the post-game shows, pre-game shows. All that goes up in podcast form. So subscribe to the podcast as well, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the thumbs up. And that way you can keep in touch and connected with everything going on Florida State sports, courtesy of warchant.com. Okay, then, gentlemen. Again, Friday night, 7:30, ACC opener for Florida State. It's on ESPN, taking on Louisville. We're going to make our picks. But first, our staff members who are not on the panel this week.
Hey there, guys. Here in front of beautiful Doak Campbell. Beginning of the year, I thought Florida State probably go 1-1 between the LSU and Louisville games. I'm actually going to go back on that. I'm picking Florida State to win. Picking Florida State to beat Louisville 35-20 on Friday. Really think that if Florida State can run the ball in this game, they're going to have a much easier time managing the offense. I think Florida State's going to start fast in this game and close a little bit better than they did 2 weeks ago against LSU. I've got Florida State by 2 scores over Louisville, 35-20.
All right, so the last time we did a Warchant report, I was on the panel, and I said I feel really comfortable about picking Florida State in this game. I was kind of spooked by how comfortable I felt. And lo and behold, Florida State was the better team. Tried to give it away in the waning moments, but Florida State was the better team for huge swaths of the game. I feel that way again. I just do. I can't run from what I feel, people. I think Florida State scores enough to get into the mid to upper 30s. They just got to make sure that they finish in the red zone. Can't come away with 3s and 0s. You need some 7s in this game. The concern is on defense, but I do believe Florida State's corners will be good enough to hold Malik Cunningham and Louisville into the mid-20s. So therefore, here's your pick. Florida State 38, Louisville 24. We'll see you on Warchant TV for the Zaxby's game day coverage from pregame all the way through the postgame.
The moment you've all been waiting for, Corey Clark's pick. I know I'm wearing red. Don't let that fool you. I'm not picking the Cardinals. It's just I look great in red. I foresee another close game, just like I did against LSU. I think Florida State has the better quarterback, as good as Malik Cunningham is. I know it's on the road, true road game. But, man, maybe there's something special brewing. I'm not going to lie. I might even feel like a Fitzmagic kick at the end to win this bad boy. But either way, I feel like Florida State's going to win. They need to get to about 33, 34 points. If they get there, which they should, they're going to win the game. Noles are going to be 3-0. We are going to be dancing and bring on those Eagles from Boston College. Noles win 31-26. So I guess Fitzgerald's kick won't matter much. It's just going to make it a 5-point game. But Fitz, we need all the kicks we can get, buddy.
Got some tough memories. Florida State playing up there between Lamar Jackson, Tutu Atwell, some guys just going ham against Florida State. But, man, if you exercise the demons the last 5 years, Florida State should have the better team here. They've got the better quarterback. They should be able to run, you would think, against Louisville. Everything seems to add up for Florida State, but, man, it's hard to get over what's gone on the last 5 years. But I'm going to go with my head, not my heart. Florida State's the better team as long as they don't – hey, Aslan, bleep this out. As long as I don't fuck up on special teams and as long as they don't turn the ball over too much, I think this should be Florida State by a touchdown. Give me the Noles going 3-0 for the first time since 2015, 27-20.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right, let's get to it then. Without much more preamble, Jeff, 7:30, Louisville, Florida State, ACC opener for the Noles. I mean, we've been talking that we like them a lot, Jeff, so go ahead, make your pick.
I swear I've been beaten and scarred, and I want to make some sort of assertive prediction here and go in strong with Florida State to win big, but I feel like they're going to give up a couple of big plays and make us a little bit more nervous than they need to. But I still like Florida State's offense to carry the day, and they'll do enough on defense. I like Florida State to win the game 34-20.
Ooh, 2-score game. We're cruising. Are we past win small mode? We're now win big mode. Are we there?
We're cruising past this, buddy. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, Ira, 34-20. Knowles for Jeff. What do you see happening up there in Cardinal Stadium on Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Florida State's offense is going to play well. I don't think Louisville's defense is very good, and they certainly are not going to be able to do what they did against Plumlee. So I like Florida State to win the game, but I think Louisville's going to score a little bit more than Jeff says, not a whole lot more. I like Florida State to win 31-27.
Ooh. Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to go Florida State. I was going to go 31-24, so Ira didn't pick that, so I will stick with 31-24. I think that actually hits the over on this one, Jeff. Do you know the over-under right now as we sit here?
I only saw that circa when it came out yesterday that Florida State was favored by 1.5, and I did not follow up on the number just yet, but I should have.
All right. Well, 31-24. And I think we can all breathe easy in this one, hopefully. So hopefully, we'll just, they'll have the ball 3 minutes left, Louisville. They'll stop it, and then they'll run a 4-minute offense, get enough first downs, no more timeouts, and we can enjoy a 3-0 team. And then Boston College. Have you guys seen Boston College? They don't look that great. They're coming into Doak at 8 p.m. too. Come on, Jeff Hafley.
Corey's going to volunteer to do that Warchant report. So he can make fun of Boston College.
Yeah, he'll jump on board there. By the way, Aslan, I like Florida State 38-7 over Boston College.
I'm making that pick now.
We already got it recorded. We'll just drop that in for next week's show. All right. Thanks so much for watching the Warchant Report on behalf of Jeff Cameron and Irish O'Fell. I'm Aslan Javani. We thank you so much. Stay connected to warchant.com. Again, it's only $1 to sign up. There's much more over there. Go check it out.